This story is a three-part prescription for saving money. It's about getting what you pay for. Item 1. Shop around. Rose Goldfarb is a 70-year-old widow who lives alone on a limited income. Last year, her bill for medicine was over $150. A doctor has written her a prescription for an antibiotic called erythromycin. She's coming to a New York pharmacy to have it filled. The wait, just under 10 minutes. The bill for the medicine, exactly $12. We later took identical prescriptions to two other drugstores within 500 yards of Thomas Pharmacy, where Rose Goldfarb had just paid $12. Just up the street at the West Side Pharmacy, the identical quantity and strength of erythromycin cost us $6.19. And around the corner, at the Oliver Cromwell Prescription Center, the very same medicine cost just $3.99.
I'm really outraged to see that he charged me $12 for something that we avoid much less. And if I had known ahead of time, I surely would have walked an extra block or two to save that $4, especially for senior citizens who live on fixed incomes like myself. The $4 could have gone for other things that we need, I need for food or to other things.
That's a wholesale price difference of more than $9 in the same drugstore for two versions of the same medicine. Donald Kennedy was FDA commissioner.
All drugs that have met the most modern FDA tests for approval, that is, all post-1962 drugs, that we know anything about are the same in quality as between brand-name drugs and generic drugs.
The U.S. government is probably the largest single user of generic drugs. For example, the Pentagon, HEW, the VA, and the U.S. Public Health Service purchase millions of generic dosage forms a year. And you don't have to look very far from home to find the savings potential that generic drugs represent. The province of Ontario in Canada has had a generic drug program since 1972. The program also includes a much shorter patent period for brand name drugs. The price savings for the people of Canada have been dramatic. Let's take Valium as our example. Here in Windsor, Ontario, 1,000 tablets of Valium wholesales for about $35. The generic equivalent, about $3. Just across the river, in Detroit, Michigan, the same 1,000 tablets of Valium wholesales for about $90. So in the USA, $90 per thousand. In Canada, $35 per thousand. If every prescription was filled with an available generic, American consumers could save hundreds of millions of dollars a year on medicine. Yet today, only about 1 prescription in 10 is filled with the less expensive generic. Why? Well, for one thing, not all drugs are available generically. They're still protected by patent. The other reason is less wholesome. Ben Gordon spent 20 years as a drug consultant to the U.S. Senate.
For many years, the large drug manufacturers have been misleading and lying to the American public, to the medical profession, and to the Congress about the quality of their drugs as against that of the generic drugs. We have found in congressional hearings that the large brand name manufacturers have been spending from $3,000 to $5,000 per doctor per year promoting their own brand name drugs and knocking the generic drugs.
This 10-year-old ad from the Pharmaceutical Manufacturers Association was typical of the generic smear campaign. This ad was aimed at doctors. This series of ads, sponsored by the Congress of County Medical Societies, is still being circulated. This film, made for Eli Lilly, compared generic drugs to defective cars. And this documentary, paid for by the Warner Chilcott Laboratories, was anchored by ex-NBC newsman Frank Blair.
Are generic drugs good enough? Some clinical physicians don't think so.
In addition to the anti-generic propaganda campaigns, laws were passed in all 50 states prohibiting druggists from substituting less expensive generics for the more expensive brand drugs. But in the past 4 years, the tide has turned. Those anti-substitution laws have now been repealed in 39 states and in the District of Columbia, and the way has been cleared for generic substitution. Since 1968, the number of new prescriptions filled with generics has more than doubled, and it's simple arithmetic. If more generic drugs are dispensed, patients will use less of the expensive brand name remedies. That will cost the major drug companies big money. So lately, the pharmaceutical giants have done an about-face. Now they've jumped on the generic bandwagon. That brings us to item 3, the branded generics. In addition to this simple erythromycin, we said wholesales for about $6.20. SmithKline and French Laboratories markets a branded generic for about $9.10, while Bristol Labs markets one called Bristamycin for about $14. The brand companies say their higher prices are justified. Joseph Stetler was president of the Pharmaceutical Manufacturers Association.
Those larger companies have heavy investments in quality control, research, which is relatively incidental, but they have a backup capability that is of value to a consumer. So there's a justification for a price differential.
Because of quality control, we've gotten used to paying more for brand name products. But are branded generics really worth that extra price? You decide. Because that yellow SK erythromycin wasn't manufactured here at SmithKline & French's Philadelphia headquarters, and that orange Bristamycin wasn't made here at Bristol Labs' enormous plant in Syracuse.
Regardless of the color of the tablets or the brand name stamped on them, all of the erythromycin we've just shown you, marketed by big-name brand drug companies, were all actually manufactured in a single place, here at the Mylan Pharmaceutical Company in Morgantown, West Virginia.
What we found at Mylan was one machine turning out white erythromycin tablets. In another room, we saw them after they'd been colored pink with a special dye. Down the hall, we saw the drug colored yellow, being stamped with the SmithKline logo. And in the packaging area upstairs, we found orange versions of erythromycin bearing the Bristol insignia. We showed all 4 erythromycin tablets to Dr. Marvin Seif, chief of the FDA's generic drugs section.
Although the colors vary, these tablets are therapeutically equivalent. They have the same basic ingredients. By therapeutically equivalent, I mean that when these tablets are used or prescribed for the treatment of an infectious disease, they act equally.
We know for a fact that these 3 drugs were manufactured at the same plant, and the only thing that's different is the color coding and the logo.
You know the basic ingredients are the same. If that's so, then there'd have to be some basis for it that I'm not familiar with. But of course, every company has the right to price their products as they see fit.
SmithKline does list the actual manufacturer on the label, but all the druggists we talked to didn't notice the fine print.
That's a surprise to me. I had never noticed that. It's right there on the label. I had never noticed that.
Mylan isn't the only small drug company pumping out pills for the big brand houses. Columbus, Ohio, Phillips Roxanne Labs, 60 milligram acetaminophen codeine tablets, manufactured for SmithKline & French. When they put them in an SK bottle, they wholesale for about $13.20 a hundred. When they put them in a Phillips Roxanne package, they sell for about $10.80. We asked Phillips Roxanne President Jerry Whita if it's the same medicine.
The products are identical.
They are precisely identical.
Precisely identical.
Another example, chloral hydrate, a widely prescribed sedative. There are no less than 60 brands on the market with almost as many different prices. 100 capsules from Professional Pharmacy Products wholesale for about $2.17. From Letterly Labs, the price is $2.75. And from Squibb, it's $5.52. Where does it all come from? You guessed it. It all comes from the same place, RP Share Corporation in Detroit. William R. Ebert is Share's Director of Quality Assurance. Is there any difference, qualitatively speaking, in the chloral hydrate you make for one manufacturer as opposed to the chloral hydrate you make for another?
No, generally speaking, it's the same. Chloral hydrate is chloral hydrate. It's an official product in the United States Pharmacopoeia. It has to meet certain specifications for everyone.
Are they interchangeable, in fact?
Yes.
What companies do you make chloral hydrate for?
Nope. Stop.
Like most of the generic drug manufacturers we talked to, Dr. Ebert was reluctant to disclose the names of the brand companies he does business with.